will have broken the record for the longest shutdown the country has had consecutively. And I know that you guys have heard the political figure pointing and the talking heads on the news that are filling the air with a lot of noise. But I'm going to tell you guys that all of that is just a distraction. There is no single event that has to happen for the government to finally reopen and for millions of federal workers to get their paycheck. So in tonight's show, we're going to be breaking down exactly what that is, because what they're not telling you is that this isn't just a budget dispute anymore. It's a high stakes political war, and it only ends when one side is forced to surrender. 20 days, for 20 days, the gears of the US government has been grinding to a halt. And this all started on October 1st, 2025, when Congress could not pass the funding bills needed to keep the lights on. And this isn't the first time it's happened. It's the 11th shutdown in modern history. But this is one that feels different, and it feels more entrenched, more personal, and more dangerous. He says, do you think Israel may be influencing the shutdown? No, I don't think Israel has anything to do with what's going on with the United States. Donald Trump's goal is to remove the parties out of his way so that he can make the decisions that he wants to make while he is in office. One of the problems that presidents have always had during their presidential campaigns, where the people blame the president and say, oh, he was a garbage president because he didn't do anything. It's not the president's fault that if Congress does not agree with the president, that they can veto the president's decision. There are so many checks and balances while the president is supposed to be the final signature that goes on the document before action is taken. The president still has to get 501 people to agree. So if he makes an executive decision and over 500 people disagree with him, his opinion doesn't matter. And in the House, when the majority rules, in most situations, sometimes it has to be a unanimous decision. But in situations where a majority rules, if the majority rules against the president, then the president's decisions don't go anywhere. Actions don't get taken. And a president only has 4 years to make a difference. And usually, presidents are not able to make a difference without having an 8-year term. So Trump's position is to remove the opposition. If he removes the naysayers, then what changes he wants to make can get made. That has nothing to do with Israel. However, the way he's going about doing it, a lot of people might feel a little bit skeptical about it. And I don't know what to say. Besides, you know, while change has happened, the economy does suck right now. A lot of people are broke as fuck right now. In order for you to change something that was broken in the past, you have to dismantle it. But when you start taking apart something broken that you have been using for a long period of time because it functioned while broken, it doesn't change the fact that stopping to use it, stop using it to fix it, will interfere with whatever progress you was making by using something broken. Like driving a car that's on its last leg, but it still gets you where you got to go. The day you put it in the shop to fix all the things that's wrong with it is the day that you're back walking, catching rides and Ubers and shit like that for months while your car's in the shop. But if you can just turn that key and get it to take you where you want to go, it doesn't matter how bad off the car is, as long as it still runs. Some people feel like if it still works, it doesn't matter if it's broken. But a lot of us believe that the way this country runs itself, the way the people behave in this country, is in fact broken. I am not going to say that I 100% agree with everything that happens, but what I can say is that something different needs to happen. The way things have always been is not the way things need to continue to be going into the future. And whatever change, whatever president in office decides to make, it can't be worse than what we've been dealing with. Poor people getting poorer. It doesn't matter what happens to the rich because 90 to 95% of the people in the population are considered poor. So in order to change that, you have to change from the bottom up what is causing the people to stay poor, not what causes them to get poor, because they could be born into poor. And if they have the right opportunities, they can come out of poverty. But for some, they can't come out of poverty. And if you fix why, it's just like an initiative to fix the homeless population, you can fix the homeless population. But there's multiple factors in it. It's not just the fact that they're homeless. It's the fact that some people are homeless and they don't want to try, and some people are homeless and don't have the right opportunities. When you start taking people off the street and providing them with homes, and then you give those people an opportunity, the ones that take advantage of that opportunity will become successful and reincorporated into society. The others will remain homeless. So you can't even build a homeless initiative that's going to completely eliminate homelessness unless you're willing to financially support individuals that don't want to work. Well, drug addiction is not a massive issue as much as people might think. Uh, Emotional distress is a higher factor than drug addiction because you have to understand that in order for individuals to fall on drugs and alcohol, they would have to have a catastrophic life impact, be it trauma from past experience, stress and anxiety from the failure to perform or the fear of not being able to succeed. And this leads to the poor choices of self medicating with drugs and alcohol. You have peer pressure that gets people involved with addictive drugs and alcohol that allows people to then not be able to control their addiction. But outside of social um, choices, the biggest issue is going to be look at that. That's why you need a second new car. I told you Michael is always here. But yeah, it's not just the addiction thing. Now Michael says I mean mixed martial arts says a lot of addictions have trauma. There are also people who just like the way drugs felt and chose to continue to use them. So I am involved in the 12 step community. Okay, congratulations on your 12 steps. I can tell you, mixed martial arts, that there are some individuals that were exposed to addiction. Well, first of all, let's talk about a couple things that are going to segue away from our main topic of the political economy right now. First and foremost is that some areas of addiction can be a chemical imbalance that is inherited. So if you have addiction that runs in your family, you might be highly susceptible to addiction. However, drugs and alcohol are utilized to compromise the stability of an individual, and that compromised state gives a level of euphoria that allows individuals to feel a level of pleasure, unnatural areas of dopamine release. Right now, individuals might like how that feeling is and then go chase that high, and that's where addictions come from because the body has the ability to adapt. So once the body feels a certain level of feel, the body can adapt that feeling, and you will require a larger dosage to reach that same feeling again. You continue to increase the dosage until your liver, kidneys can't process it, and then you end up in an OD situation. So, for those individuals who get into it, but you got into it for one of three reasons: hereditary exposure, peer pressure, or life stress. So, the traumas of life that got you sampling drugs to make the pain stop, sampling drugs to make the stress stop, sampling drugs to help you get through something that you don't want to do. That's one way. Peer pressure. Come on, bro. Join the party. Don't be a spoil sport. Don't be a buzzkill. Just try it. It's good. That peer pressure could lead you into a situation where you can't control walking out of the situation. Then, you know, you've got those woe is me scenarios. And those woe is me scenarios are going to have you in a position where you're making the wrong choice. They say, yeah, for some people, drugs hijack the metabolism dopamine system in the nucleus. Yeah. Look, mixed martial arts coming over here. The nucleus accomplished. He's over here hitting us with some science. Micah said there was a homeless people 2,000 years ago, and there will be homeless people 2,000 years in the future. Actually, I don't think that there will be homeless people 2,000 years in the future. I think there is going to be homeless robots next to all humanity living in a hole in the ground because the fembots that are going to take over the world are going to be running the country because we're putting machines to work right now. And when machines take over the workforce, humans won't have jobs. And if humans don't have jobs, humans don't have income. And if humans don't have income, humans will be homeless. Because if you're a human, you are going to have trauma. That is true. But how you handle that trauma is different from person to person. And that's something that we try to get through um, Thursday, Friday, Saturday when we start talking about how to make better choices with your life. First person accountability coupled with um, responsibility and positive decision making. Now, let's start with the most immediate impacts that the government's been having, the human cost. Right now, over 1 million federal workers are caught in the crossfires, and these aren't just faceless bureaucrats, because in Washington, D.C., they are our friends and neighbors. They are the TSA agents, and I want to give a special shout out to the TSA agents because they have been doing a fantastic job holding the fort down. And these TSA agents are going to be, in addition to food inspectors and scientists, about 740,000 of them have been furloughed so far, which is just a um, sterile government term for being sent home without pay, without a job for an unknown period of time. The other 420,000 are more or less, they're deemed essential, which is an even crueler twist because they're forced to show up to work anyway. Think air traffic controllers, the border patrol agents showing up without pay and getting a fucking paycheck. They go to work every day though. They'll get their money eventually. It's just not this month. He said, Mary's here. She's got drugs. Have you lost weight, Xander? Actually, I don't think I have. I don't think I've lost weight. Do I look thinner? Does it? I think it's the camera. Do I look thinner? Do I look sleek? It could be the shirt. Could be the shirt. It's a new shirt. I like this shirt. It's one of me. It's in my new Xander collection. Actually, you're right. All humans have have past. Yeah, you look thinner. Well, I appreciate that. Um, Actually, I should be trying to get bulk. I'm probably going to have to get on one of the P90X programs and start warping up a storm so that I can Bobby Lashley and get big. He said, push the red button. You do not want, the red button is supposed to be the nuke button, right? The red button isn't supposed to help folks. It's not like Batman and Robin with the red phone. The red button is bad news. Now, one of the things that we're experiencing in the government right now is that they're burning through their savings just to do the jobs the government has declared vital, while the same government refuses to pay them, right? So across the country, the signs of this crisis are getting more visible. Food banks near DC and other areas with large federal workforces are seeing lines of people who never imagined they'd need help to feed their families, which is a huge call to action for everybody who's not uh, the type of person that would normally donate to a food bank. When you are not poor, when you are not destitute, when you are not in need, you might pity people in a bad spot. You might look down on people in a bad spot, but those people came across a bad situation that they could not get out of. Food banks usually get what people don't want in their house. The stuff that they clean out their cabinets and they throw it before they throw it away, they bring it to a food bank. So it's one step away from being spoiled, it's one step away from being rotten in some situations. But in other situations, you have food banks that have so much. Oh, he said it's the clothes. That's because okay, so normally the clothes that I have are like 15 years old. So some of the clothes are like slim fit. Now, I realize that some of the clothes that I own is starting to get a little bit too tight because I'm starting to get a little bit too old and I'm starting to get a little bit too much weight in some of the wrong areas. So, bought a couple new outfits last month, starting to wear them this week, and they are properly sized to my overweightness. Now, it fits properly and it's stretchy clothes. So, it actually it's not too tight. It doesn't. I don't have my stomach hanging over nothing. I don't have. So it actually makes me look smaller. I like it. I like it really good. Is it who makes your shirt? I don't know. I would have to take my. I'm gonna look and then I'm gonna tell you tomorrow because I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you. I went to Temu. I got the link to Temu in the description. I went to Temu and I bought shit that was dirt cheap. I got three pairs of pants and three shirts for less than $100. So, and first time in 30, not 30, first time in 13 years that I bought some clothes. I got three shirts and three pairs of pants for less than $100 with shipping. So I don't know the name of this brand. But what I do know is that it fits good. It's not like a silk or satin. It's kind of like a shiny Scotch, uh, Scotch guard kind of cotton material, but it fits good. It works well with the pants. Fits good. I like it. But like I was saying about this food bank situation, what you have to understand is that when it comes down to the food bank, if people now start making this a habit during the government shutdown, it will be fantastic after the government gets back up and going. For every, well, first of all, you got to make it a point. Every time you go to the store, you got to try to buy 5 to 10 cans of food that you're going to bring to the food bank directly from the grocery store. You want to, for every time you go and get yourself a box of cereal, you want to pick up an extra box of cereal for the food bank. For if really 10 to 15% of the groceries that you buy at the store, you should right now make it a point to start bringing it to the local food banks so that you can show your appreciation for the TSA agents and all of the other federal workers that are working for free or unable to work until they can feed themselves. And if you start doing that now, and funny thing is that that is a communism mentality is for everybody to share the resources that they have. But if you started doing that now, when the government came back up and running, if you made that a habit, there would be more food at the food banks for the food banks to provide for the poor people, which means that you would have less people dependent on government funding because they would be able to get it from their food bank. But a food bank is supported by society, the network. That's it. Food banks are not government funded. Food banks get the food from the stores and the people in the area of that food bank that gives what they can to that food bank. So if you make it a point to go to a food bank right now during the shutdown and give freshly bought groceries from the store to the food bank can provide better quality food to the government workers and the homeless people that are struggling right now. So there's a call to action right there for you guys while we're talking about it. Now, mortgages are being missed, and I got no advice for that, bro, because we're not helping people pay for their house. But people who have lived on paycheck to paycheck and those paychecks have simply disappeared, this isn't a paid vacation for them. It's an indefinite layoff with the constant anxiety of not knowing when your job will come back. You guys will have to find a side hustle that'll get you a job at a Walmart or a Target or a Staples or a Starbucks and figure some shit out. You're gonna be CIA agent taking fast food orders in a drive-through or something to make ends meet because until you get back on your feet, till the government call you back in, you, you shit out of luck. And those people who got furloughed got it worse than the people who are first to work for free. The essential workers that are forced to work for free are putting in work and they will get paid when the government starts working again. So if you get a 1 month paycheck November 15th, and then your regular paychecks after that, you got a shit ton of money. If you got furloughed, you did not work, so you will not get paid unless some kind of contract in a salary employee setup that says that you're guaranteed the pay, even if you don't work. Unless that situation occurs, the furloughed workers are not going to get back pay for the month of work that they didn't have. They just are out of a job. So beyond the direct human toll, the services that we all take for granted are going to start disappearing as well. We already know about the National Park Services, and since they have been furloughed, most of its staff is not there. So parks might be physically open, but with no one there for safety or sanitation. And they become shadows of what they should be. So make it a point in national parks, don't litter, don't get out there and start, cause some trouble because if you are out there and they're understaffed and you don't take good care of your national park, there's no one there to take good care of it. So you're going to start seeing the quality of the park go down. And some things that we do, the environment doesn't bounce back off of, which then has those national parks looking like a former shadow of itself. Um, the U.S. Travel Association estimates the economy losing $1 billion a week from people canceling trips to parks and museums. So the Smithsonian museums are closed. The IRS has largely shut down, which means that you're probably going to be having some issues with taxation, and taxpayers' questions right now are going unanswered. And that is crucial for the upcoming tax season that is going to end up being stalled. And this is stalled again because remember when we used to start filing taxes January 1st, we used to get our W-2s and 1099s from our jobs by January 31st. Now we're getting it by February 28th. And with everything being delayed, we might start getting it by the 15th of March, but your ass still got to have the taxes filed on the 25th of April. They're not putting the due date back. They're just putting the start date back. Like I said, actually, a lot of food banks get their food from extra food on the delivery truck. It goes to the food bank, a good food and fresh food, also as long as we get a receipt for tax purposes. But Michael, that's the commercial side of it. Like I said, Publix, Walmart, other such companies will donate their food. You have certain food trucks that'll donate their food, delivery trucks that'll donate the extra stuff. But the people, because my call to action was for the people who give to the food bank usually take what's in their cabinet that they don't want, that's been there forever, and they bring it to the food bank instead of throwing it in the trash. That's not the businesses. Michael is 100% correct. Businesses will give a little extra. And because they're getting a receipt for it as a tax write-off, they will give quality because the more valuable the item is, the more tax deduction they get. So yeah, delivery trucks and big businesses will donate fresh foods and they will buy a bunch of foods and just bring the truck directly to the food bank so that they can get that tax deduction from it. But the average person who goes to work, comes back to their house, and they've got stuff in their house. They take the stuff that they don't know how they got it, but it's in their house and they don't want it. It hasn't been opened. They're going to bring that to the food bank. And I am saying that the average person should change their mentality, go to the grocery stores, and go and get fresh foods. That's what I'm saying. Any recommendations for getting off of benzodiazepine? Well, first of all, if you're medically prescribed benzodiazepine, then you should be talking to your primary doctor about titrating yourself off of it. Uh, Reducing the dosage slowly over the course of intakes, or reducing the quantity of intakes slowly over the course of a number of days or weeks in order to reduce your levels slowly will lead you towards an area where you're no longer taking them at all. Recognizing what you're taking them for, if the reason why you're taking them is no longer a thing and you've only been taking them for a short period of time, then stop taking them is the easiest thing to do. If you've been taking any kind of medication for an extended period of time, your best bet is to wean yourself off of it by doing less of it less often till you end up not doing any of it at all. Some people who have become addicted to it substitute their addiction with a different addiction. That doesn't always benefit because if you substitute drugs for smoking, you're change. It doesn't matter if you're smoking cigarettes or smoking weed or tunchi or whatever they got going on. Basically, if you switch from one thing to the next, you might find yourself causing harm to your body in another fashion. If you switch from smoking to drinking alcohol, you go from destroying your esophagus to destroying your lungs and your kidneys. You know, but to go from doing negative impacts to your body to doing healthy, that requires emotional support from friends and family. Go to AA meetings and start tackling the root core of why you do those drugs in the first place, why you fall back on so much alcohol in the first place, and then uh, make the conscious choice to not do it and try your best not to fall into the temptation. Michael says, I used to take 50 pounds of ribs that was extra on the rib to food banks. Or if the warehouse was delivering, the warehouse I was delivering to had no space, it was cheaper to donate it or throw it away. I agree. So again, for company purposes, for commercial purposes, you were able to bring large quantities of food to a food bank. But for individual civilian purposes, individuals do not bring the food they got from Walmart to the food bank. They typically take the food in their cabinets that they don't need, don't want, don't plan on eating, and they give that to the food bank. People don't buy for the sake of getting it away more often than not because they're not doing it to get a tax write-off. Those people are just emptying out the cabinets and they're not throwing stuff in the trash because of the clout of I took some of the food out of my house and gave it to a food bank. But I say for those individuals, not big businesses, because Michael, you're completely right. I'm saying those individuals, not big businesses, that want to make a difference. Go to the grocery store for the specific purpose of shopping for the food bank. That's how you make a difference. That's how you support the furloughed workers. That's how you support the government employees that are not part of a political debate that is causing families to be destroyed during the shutdown. Go shopping specifically for that, for the food bank. That's what would happen. Michael says, not going to worry about taxes if everyone is going to be affected. How they gonna audit you and they ain't got no workers? I mean, they got 10 years to do it, but if they're behind, how are they gonna audit you? Now, some of the impacts are invisible, but for far more insidious than what you might think. Because at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, widespread furloughs have put vital research on hold. So the complex work of tracking diseases and developing vaccines doesn't just stop and start cleanly. Every day the shutdown continues, we are creating blind spots in our nation's ability to protect itself. But in this 2025 shutdown, a new, more aggressive front has opened because now it has become a legal battlefield. The administration began singling it. Hold on, let me tell you this one more time. The administration has began signaling it was prepared to use reduction in force notices, RIF notices, to thousands of federal workers. So let's be clear about this. These aren't furloughs. These are firings. These are that old school, old fashioned pink slip situation. The White House and its budget director stated they could fire north of 10,000 workers using the shutdown as justification. That's a lot. We said buy turkeys every year for our employees at Thanksgiving and Christmas. And then everybody else who doesn't own a business, you buy a second turkey every year for somebody else that doesn't live in your house. Because with 385 million people in the United States, if every person bought two turkeys, every person with a job bought two turkeys, if 70% of the population bought two turkeys, you would have enough turkeys where every person in the United States could get a turkey. To get a whole turkey, not a piece of a turkey, not a sliver, a whole turkey. So think about that. Think about how if the largest majority of us shared, everybody would have. Strange thing. Now, critics and federal employee unions immediately called the risk an illegal political purge. Donald Trump said during his campaign, one lawless hour. One lawless hour. He was thinking towards a purge. And now that he's in office, the claim that the illegal political purge is going to be a bad thing that they're following up with by saying that their administration is weaponizing the shutdown. That's the argument that they're giving. The administration is weaponizing the shutdown to permanently dismantle parts of the government that opposes it. Kind of the idea. Now, this move was audacious that it immediately challenged the administration, the Trump administration, in the Supreme Court by federal unions. Like they literally was like, nah, we're not going to let this slide, and took it to court. And in a stunning rebuke, a federal judge just slammed the door on that plan. The U.S. District Judge Susan Ilston issued a temporary restraining order. Temporary. And you know what happened with all them evictions after COVID? Any type of restriction or withholding that is put in place by government being temporary leaves the door wide open for them to finish following through at a later date. But the administration is currently being blocked from firing workers during the shutdown. Doesn't mean you can't fire some business after the shutdown is over. So the judge stated the move appeared to be politically motivated, calling it an absurd abuse of power and adding that the human cost cannot be tolerated. So this has escalated the situation into a constitutional shutdown over the limits of executive power. So the administration is essentially at war with its own workforce, and the courts have now stepped in as the referee. Now, this legal drama adds an entirely new layer of volatility to what we got going on in the country right now. So we are no longer just asking when the government will be funded. We're now asking about the very legality of the government's actions during this funding gap. He says, buy the steaks for the homeless, mashed potatoes, hot biscuits. Hey, look, yeah, if everybody can afford to do that for at least one homeless person, if 50% of our population cooks for a second person and then we share, nobody be hungry. Communism works. I want to point that out. So, how do we get here? How did the world's most powerful government find itself in a state of self-induced paralysis? He said, best advice is to tighten your belts and ride it out. You tight. You're gonna do more than tightening your belt. You're gonna be boarding up your house so that they can't kick the door and take your shit. You're gonna be hiding your car in the backyard so that they don't reach on that motherfucker. It ain't gonna be more than just tightening belts. Because if you don't really need it, don't buy it for now. If you don't need it, you should not buy it ever. It's always a fun dream to want shit that you don't need, but you shouldn't proactively go and get shit that you don't need. Think about that. So the answer is going to be fundamental here. Ideological clashes over the role of government itself that has been simmering for years and now has boiled over is how we got here. He said, no, you bring in the side dishes. I could try, but not for 386 million Americans. I can bring a side dish. I can bring a gallon of Kool-Aid. But am I going to try to feed the nation? Y'all better like, subscribe, and donate to the channel. I'll cook for the nation if y'all donate to the channel. But it is going to require a lot of money to feed folks, especially if you're talking about unlimited food. You see the food system, the food assistance system, giving folks $300 a month, and that ain't enough money. Yeah, y'all would have to donate to me like $1 million a month. Yeah, think about what these food assistance budgets would look like in order for them to give everybody $300. Because when you think that there is 386,000 people in the country, and there's a food stamp system out there for at least the bottom 34%, and the bottom 34% is something close to 100,000 people. And if you're giving each person $300, and you have 100,000 people, that's $3 million towards food assistance every month that's being issued until those people are terminated off the program. So if we have a $3 million budget going towards $3 million a month, which ultimately would be like 300 or $36 million a year for food assistance, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, and that's not including the food banks and other such situations. That's just the food stamp card. That's not the WIC or anything like that. That's just the food stamp card. So you got to understand how much money the government is putting aside for your food assistance. So to understand some of this, you have to look at the playbooks from both sides. Now, this isn't just a disagreement over numbers, it's a high stakes game of political chicken where both drivers are convinced that the other will swerve first. We already know that two people who are not victims don't survive because they're going to crash into them. First, the Republican position, which is closely aligned with former and current President Donald Trump. The House passed a funding bill, but it was dead on arrival in the Senate. That bill wasn't a simple funding extension, it was a blueprint for a different America, containing deep cuts to domestic spending, significant reductions in health programs like Medicare, and rescinding billions in foreign aid. The strategy is to use the pressure of the shutdown to force Democrats to accept long term reductions in what they call wasteful Democrat programs. Now, this isn't just about being fiscally conservative, it's a belief that large parts of the federal government are bloated or even harmful. From this perspective, the shutdown isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's a tool to achieve the policy goals that could never happen through normal legislation. The permanent shrinking of the social safety net that we're experiencing, the unprecedented move to fire federal workers, and an echoing of the controversial Schedule F proposal to strip job protection is the most extreme version of the strategy. It's a signal that the goal isn't just to defund the government temporarily, but to dismantle parts of it permanently. And they believe that as the shutdown drags on, the public will pressure Democrats to concede just to get things running again. Now, on the other side, you have the Democrats who have drawn a clear red line. For them, this is a fight to protect the core pillars of the social safety net. When they blocked the Republican bill in the Senate, they were declaring they will not negotiate with a gun to their heads. Now they're demanding for new spending, but it's not just for new spending, but to preserve the status quo. They're insisting on maintaining the Affordable Care Act insurance subsidies and revising the proposed cuts to Medicaid and public health agencies. The Democratic strategy is built on the belief that the public will ultimately blame the party causing the most pain. They're betting that as federal workers miss paychecks and national parks stay shuttered, the the political heat will become unbearable for the Republicans. That's what they're hoping. So their refusal to yield because they believe that giving in now would set a catastrophic precedent, and that anytime a party wants to gut social programs, all they have to do is shut down the government and wait. And you see, this is something that is not as a negotiation, but as a hostage situation. Now, Michael's question was, so no one gets a paycheck until they come to terms with each other. That is exactly what we're talking about. All of the TSA agents and all of the government agents that are considered essential workers that are showing up to work every day with a smile on their face and trying to help you out, be nicer than people, because they ain't seen a paycheck since September. And they're not likely to see a paycheck until December. And now they've got to beg and borrow so that they don't have to steal to maintain their standard of living until the government stops fighting. So what makes this shutdown so intractable is that both sides think they have the upper hand. And history offers just enough evidence to support both views. Because I'm not boarding up my house, I'm going to buy another person's house, going to buy the people's houses. Well, that would be the best way to go because everybody's house is going to be up for foreclosure. You swoop in and you get them bad boys at 25% of the value of the house. You made you a bunch of money. And then after the furloughs are over, after the government shutdown is over, you can rent them houses out to those government agents and get your money. One of the historical situations that occurred was the 1995 to 1996 shutdown between President Bill Clinton and the House Speaker Newton Gingrich is maybe the most instructive parallel. So the 21-day stand-up was a deep ideological battle over cuts to Medicare and education. Initially, Republicans believed they had a mandate, but as the shutdown dragged on, public opinion turned decisively against them. They were seen as the aggressor and ultimately had to back down. Democrats are banking on a repeat of that this time around. Because most homeless don't want food but drugs. That's not true. Most homeless use drugs so that they can forget about the crappy situation that they're in. But most homeless also want food and clothes. You got to really think about that. On the outside looking in, we have the observation that homeless people deliberately make bad choices, and that's why they're homeless. That's why they stay homeless. But that's not the case. The fact that they don't have an opportunity to get back on their feet puts them in a heightened level of anxiety, a heightened level of stress, and then they want or need drugs to take the edge off of the stress so that they can continue to live a destitute situation with no signs of improvement coming soon. So some might sacrifice savings to go get drugs or alcohol to self-medicate. Some might actually choose to skip a meal to get themselves tore up. But it's all based on the fact that they're going through some stuff they don't need to be going through. All students from kindergarten to 12th grade should be free in school. Just add a small fee to your city taxes. Well, they don't need to have a small fee to the city taxes. The government already says that if you give money to your local public school, they're going to give you a tax credit. So why does the United States government have to make a mandatory tax increase when all you have to do is take 10% of your income and give it to the school, get a voucher for it, and then send that voucher into your tax return? So every service that's funded by the government, if you had a nonprofit that was running money for that particular type of service, and then everybody was donating a percentage of their income to that type of service, we wouldn't need the government to pay for all of the stuff. But the government pays for all of this stuff because we're not generous people in the United States. We will say thank you, we will accept it with a smile and say thank you some of the time, but more often than not, we prefer to receive than to give. However, halfway through here, the Republicans' calculus is going to be based on more recent lessons, such as the 2018-2019 shutdown over border wall funding. While Donald Trump didn't get what he demanded, he showed that a large part of his base was energized by the fight, and the shutdown itself became a symbol of his willingness to disrupt Washington. His supporters didn't see chaos, they saw a leader fighting. So the current administration is betting that this dynamic still holds and that their base will reward them for fighting no matter what. And when you think about that, no matter what, you're saying that everybody that's negatively impacted by the decisions you're going to be making is collateral damage, the ends that justify the means. Now, this brings us to the so-called negotiation. The Senate has held multiple votes on the House bill, and every single one has failed. These votes aren't real attempts at compromise. They are political theater. They are designed to force the other party to cast a damaging vote, either against funding the government or for extreme cuts. It's about generating attack ads for the next election, not finding a solution. So there's no middle ground in a war over fundamental principles. This is the reality of the political game of chicken. Each side is strapped in speeding towards each other, like just Need for Speed, Paul Walker and Truth. Republicans are betting that Democrats' fear of hurting federal workers will make them swerve. Democrats are betting that Republicans' fear of a public backlash from all the chaos will make them swerve. And right now, neither side is even touching the steering wheel. No hands. Now, we've seen what's happening and why. So, in the moment, we're going to break down the one thing that will finally force one of these drivers to slam on the brakes. But before we get to that, if you guys are getting value from this video, please hit that like button, Michael. Off Mixed Martial Arts, hit the like button. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you don't miss out on future updates. Your support makes everything work. So you have two sides. They're both dug in with completely opposing views. Both are convinced public opinion will break their way. It seems like an immovable object is meeting an unstoppable force. Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Goldberg. Right? But it's not. This shutdown won't end because of a brilliant compromise. It won't end because of a primetime address that magically changes everyone's mind. And it won't end because the two sides suddenly find a newfound respect for each other. To believe that is to be misunderstood of modern political warfare. Government shutdowns end because of pain. They end when the political pain of continuing the shutdown becomes greater for one side than the political pain of surrender. So this is going to be a cold, hard calculation. Right now, that pain is still spread out so thin that not everybody is feeling it. The side can blame the other, and their bases are cheering on everything that they're talking about. The shutdown will only end when the pain becomes so concentrated and so politically toxic for a specific group of politicians that their survival instincts overrides their party loyalty. Like says, unemployment rate today is 4.3%, and the highest was 24.9% in 1933 due to the Great Depression. That's a good assessment, but unemployment rates are not that high because not that many people are being fired until Donald Trump gets that. Donald Trump is trying to do season 39 of freaking Shark Tank right now. He is walking up on folks like, your ass is fired, the whole Vince McMahon style. So, what is the single event that would fix the shutdown? What do you guys think it is? The shutdown will end when a critical mass of Republican senators are facing overwhelming pressure, which breaks ranks with the hardliners to force a vote on a clean continuing resolution. Let's break that down. Continuing resolution, or a CR, is a temporary spending bill that funds the government at current levels without a major policy changes. A clean CR is one that is free of the uh, poison pills in the case. The deep spending cuts the House Republicans put in their bill, it's basically hitting the pause button and it responds to government for 30 or 45 days. It's going to reopen it. So let the federal employees get paid. That's going to be the next step. And allowing the large budget talk to continue. Right now, that kind of bill would easily pass, but the Democratic controlled Senate, not so much. The trick is getting it to the floor and then throw the Republican controlled House into the mix. The key is the Senate, if a small group of Republicans, say 5 or 10, politically announce that they will join Democrats to pass a clean CR. It will trigger a political cascade that is impossible to stop. This move would shatter the Republican strategy of a united front. It would signal that a portion of the party believes the shutdown has gone too far. The Senate Majority Leader, who might privately want a way, would get the political cover wherever he needs it to allow a vote. And he could say that his hand was forced. Once a Senate passes a clean CR, with a strong bipartisan majority, the pressure on the House Speaker becomes immense because he would have to either allow a vote on a Senate's bill or take the sole blame for continuing a shutdown that has, in his own situation, a huge part in the Senate and has abandoned this situation. Representative Chapman, if you put a line of Coke in front and a hamburger, which do you think they would choose? Well, if you're hungry, you're going to choose a can. Everyone else is going to try to run the line. So the real question is, what brings those Republican senators to the breaking point? I call it the surrender point. The moment the political calculus of pain flips, this will reach an area of by a combination of four escalating pressures. I like that. yeah, that's a lot. So first, and most important, a decisive shift in political opinion. Right now, polls show that the public is blaming everyone. But as a shutdown drags on, the blame tends to fall on one party or another. If polling starts to consistently show that independent voters are blaming President Trump and the Republican Party, senators in swing states will start to panic. They can survive their base being angry about a comparison. It's much harder to survive the median voter seeing you as an agent of chaos. So the second thing that you need is economic pain back home. It's one thing to hear about furloughed workers on the news. It's another when the largest employers in your state are federal agents or military bases. Oh yes, make sure that you remember to take the time to like and subscribe. I gotta tell you, woo, this is a lot of information. Senators from states like Virginia, Maryland, and Colorado were a huge part of the economy that is tied to the federal government. And this is where they'll feel the heat first. They'll get panic calls, not just from federal workers, but from small business owners and real estate agents who have the likelihood of evaporating. The third thing, whew, is the ticking clock of November deadlines. This is what turns the shutdown from a chronic problem into an acute crisis. The military will be looking at a missed paycheck in addition to everything else. And the optics of asking soldiers to serve while their families aren't getting paid are catastrophic. Then there is the food aid cliff, because states have warned the millions of households relying on SNAP benefits or food stamps, many not getting them in November. So even if they hold it after the fact, it's not going to help them after November. A party that allows that to happen will be branded with a level of cruelty that is politically radioactive. And finally, whew, I just have to go through this. Finally, there's the simple reality of the holidays because heading into Thanksgiving with the government shutdown is a nightmare scenario for any incubator. The fourth pressure point is one that happens behind closed doors. Donor panic. While the ideological base may love the fight, the big money corporate donors who fund the party absolutely hate economic uncertainty. So the moment the shutdown starts to cause real damage to the stock market, or when majority of the industry leaders start making angry phone calls, that's a pressure that senators cannot ignore. Then the administration's failed legal fight over firing workers actually gives those moderate Republican senators a perfect offering. They can frame their break with the party not as a surrender, but as a principled stand for the rule of law. They can say, I support the president's goals, but I cannot condone this illegal overreach, which has now been blocked by the federal courts. It lets them save face while doing what they must to end the crisis, standing on the grounds of respecting your judicial order. So is this how it ends? He said, what you gonna give me to change my votes? Oh, I love that. He said, what you gonna give me to change my vote? All right. Are the politicians getting paid while shut down? That's a good question. If they're in the budget, I would believe so. Give me a moment. Let's verify it. Let's see. Is Congress getting paid? That was a good question to ask. You're not going to like the answer. So, Michael asked, Constitution, their salaries are protected and must be paid regardless of any funding lapses or shutdowns. While millions of federal employees, including military personnel, uh, civil servants, and congressional staffers, are not receiving their paychecks as government funding remains under reserve. Some individual lawmakers have requested to have their pay withheld in protest, and they're going to participate in ongoing legislative efforts to suspend congressional pay during shutdowns, but no such law has taken effect yet. And actually, that's a pretty interesting question, as well as a pretty interesting outcome, because if they shut down the funding to the Congress would get to an agreement at some point. Call me when the unemployment rate gets to 9%. Yeah, there's a lot of people that gets fired. So what we got to do now, we got to watch for the sign, because it will start with one or two Republican senators expressing deep concerns to their local press. Then you'll see a small group of huddling in Capitol hallways, and finally there will be somebody stepping forward before the cameras, not to surrender, but to declare that it's time to be responsible and reopen the government. That is the single event. That is the character. It is not compromise. It is a political break forced by unbearable pain. For 20 agonizing days, the US government has been shut down because of a fundamental war over its future. The headlines will stay filled with the partisan noise, but you need to watch for the signal. I'm going to be paying attention to. This shutdown will end when the escalating pain from angry voters cratering local economies and the looming threat of missed paychecks for the soldiers becomes so concentrated on a handful of Republican senators that their political survival instinct will kick in. It says December 22nd, 2018, 35 days under President Donald Trump. Well, the government shutdown was 35 days long. That was a pretty long shutdown. The single event that is a revolt from the middle, a small faction of the majority party will be forced to break rank, join the opposition, and pass a clean funding bill just to stop the bleeding. And that'll do this for that particular situation. Once they start doing that, they will have abandoned their principles, but because the political cost of continuing to be shut down has finally become higher than the cost of compromise, you'll stop compromising. It says, so we have 25 more days of government shutdown, like Groundhog's Day. Yeah. And the continuing resolution is not going to be a solution. It is a temporary truce. It kicks the can down the road for 30 to 60 days, and it reopens to government, but resolving none of the underlying conflict. So even when this crisis ends, the next one will already be on the horizon because we still got to do one for January. And we'll be right back here in a few months facing the same fight. So the question then will be, has anyone learned anything, or are we doomed to repeat the same cycles of self-inflicted crisis? What do you think? Am I right that it will take a Senate revolt to end this? Or do you see another way? Let me know in the comment section. Do you think that I was right about the Senate revolt, or are you starting to see some change? Now, I appreciate y'all marching that march with me. Make sure that y'all continue with your dividend rotation strategy, and also make sure that you put enough effort aside to offset the lack of food assistance that's going to be happening coming in November. We'll continue to monitor this story until it resolves itself. Because neither will surrender, but will come to a compromise on several items, is my thought. What's yours? Actually, yeah, I think what's going to happen when the military stops getting paid, they're going to recognize that the soldiers won't follow instructions because they haven't benefited from. And I agree with you. They're going to compromise on something, but it's not going to really be what anybody wants, and it's not going to benefit everybody across the board. But it will get a budget passed, which will allow us to start moving again. So that's actually a pretty good assessment. Now, beyond that, I want to say, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking ladies to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I give you guys this information to help you guys become higher value men, making better choices in your personal life as well as your business life. But ladies, this information is not exclusive to the men. Y'all can take this exact same information and use it to prove and improve yourself. So I want to thank you guys for coming to this and that. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.